Sean, I'll start with you. You know, this script crosses your desk, Nefarious, and you start to go through it. What immediately stood out to you?
The fact that Chuck and Carrie wrote it. I did a project with them back in 2004, and a true story. They're two of the best writers I've ever worked with, bar none. And we did a really, really cool little film that never saw the light of day. Market conditions, discoverability, independent films back then. And I told them when we wrapped, I said, I had a great times. I would do a Fruit Loops commercial with you two guys. And they called me 15 years later and they said, Sean, yeah, we got a Fruit Loops commercial. It was Carrie. And I said, put me in, coach. They go, well, we want you to read it. We want you to read it. I said, yeah, okay. I know you're supposed to act like, well, let me check it, but I like these guys. I like everything they
You were
touch.
willing to do it no matter what it was. It didn't.
I'm that's not a joke. I like these guys. I see what they make, and they're incredibly talented and creative in any room. And I've read a ton of scripts, so I read it and I sent them an email. I said I'm in, and then they said, okay, well, we just got to ask you, what role do you want to play? And I thought, what are you talking about? I want to play Nefarious. What do you? They were like, okay, thank God. We were hoping you would say that, and that was it. I loved it. I'm sure Jordan can attest. In every film, you end up not necessarily rewriting, but you kind of massage things to fit your vernacular. The cadence of your speech, etc. I didn't change a syllable with these guys. I didn't on the first film, and I didn't on this. It's what comes out of my mouth is probably 99% what they had on the page.
And that's rare, you would say, for...
Oh.
Yeah.
It's non-existent. I mean, that's the unicorn. That's the Bigfoot. Do you believe in Bigfoot, though?
I mean, I don't, but
Okay.
no.
Okay.
But I'll take your word for it.
He
There you
believes
go.
in you.
There you go.
Bigfoot's out there,
Doesn't
bro.
matter.
For you, Jordan, when you went through the script, what stood out to you?
Sean and I have talked about this, but these kinds of roles don't come around every day. This is essentially, a two-hander, a two-character piece. The complexity and precision of the writing, as he said, it's all on the page. And it's not that often. I mean, what you look for as an actor, what you look for as a performer is this idea, personally, of collision, right? Both in terms of your own character's conflict and then the conflict that they're facing. And this had all of that on multiple levels. And that kind of writing, that kind of complexity, those kinds of themes that are present, it's rare. And so you jump at that. I mean, it's so rich, it's so delicious. And when a role like that comes along, you jump.
Well, how did you guys, Jordan, do this? Because two people, as you're saying, this is a tough thing to pull off, and you pulled it off really well. What went into that process of making it natural, making sure you guys flowed the way that you did, and grabbed people's attention?
They said action. I can't add more words to make it seem like we had this really intricate process. But, we went down to the lobby to rehearse, and we ended up not rehearsing. We just got to know each other. He had just had a child. We talked about fatherhood. We talked about family.
So you bonded over life, essentially.
Yeah, and then, we said, should we run some of the line? And we read like a scene, and, I didn't do it the way I was going to do it, and he didn't do it the way he was going to do it. We just kind of said the words, and we're like, you good? Yeah, you good? Yeah, okay, cool. And then we went on the set, and they said, and I adore that. I'll tell you, I quality of life is a big thing for me. I want to do things that are artistically profound, but not at the expense of working with somebody who had to be lost in the character and only called by his character name, and you can't look him in. And his character existed between action and cut, and so did mine. And in between, we joke around, make okay, ready to shoot? Okay, well, okay, action, blah, 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 cut. So anyway, there's this pizza restaurant right down the street. It was a privilege to work with somebody with that enunciated of an on-off switch.
Well, I've seen actors before. I've been on sets before where they'll go to a room in between. They won't interact with anybody because they're in the character, and they have to just not be around you in between. Is that a common thing?
I don't know. I don't know about your experience.
I've read about it in those books, and I do know this: that the more of those stories you come up with, the more people revere your performance. I don't want to really show you the wizard behind the curtain, and he's just some little leprechaun, and you're going ha ha ha. But realistically, it's just some little leprechaun behind the curtain. My research took place between fade in and fade out. All of whatever you consider the process, it's cerebral. I thought about it for a long time. I ran the scenarios in my head, and then I just did it, and I hope it worked. But it's the only way that I know how to work. I don't to play somebody unfortunate enough to be homeless. I don't need to live on the street for 3 days and defecate on myself. I can imagine what it'd be like.
Right.
Before I lost my parents, I can imagine what it would be like. Before it even happened, I can imagine. I don't need to put myself through that scenario to really try to, if you think about it long enough, if the words are real enough on the page, your body takes over and it just reacts. And that's not to make it sound too metaphysical, but if you believe something, your body will take over and do.
You bring it to life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Particularly if you've got a partner that's giving you something to surprise yourself or surprise them. The whole relationship in a piece, specific in general, but in a piece like this, is about trust and trusting that your partner is going to help get you there and that you're going to do that dance together. And there's something actually electric that can happen without over-rehearsing or overdoing and not knowing what's going to happen and being present enough to react to what happens in that moment. And I think part of what Sean was referring to in terms of how we got to know each other was about understanding that we could trust each other and that we were going to execute in the moment when it happened.
Just to add and touch on that, it's so rare that you can preserve those organic reactions by only doing it on the day. A lot of actors want to rehearse it so many times that there's nothing new. Now, your violent reaction or your subtle reaction, I already knew it was coming. So I'm going to have to fake a surprise with the loud. And he was just willing to do it on the day. I don't even think we talked about it. We just, okay, you cool? Yeah, I'm cool. All right, cool.
What went into sort of bringing that to life? Were there elements of the character on the page that you related to personally? I'd love to kind of hear more of you relating to that character.
Well, I mean, I think, number one, James Martin, the character I play, he is the audience's way into the story. They're experiencing the story through his eyes in a lot of ways because they don't know. They're trying to figure out who he is or if he's telling the truth in the way that the doctor is. And I think, I don't presume to know, but I think that a lot of people are in a similar position, which is they think they have answers, and then when confronted with something that they can't explain, might get to a place where they're humbled enough to say, I don't know, which is basically the arc of his journey. And for me, in a lot of ways, I got to go on that ride. I mean, I had ideas about, but so much of it is listening to this and trying to figure out what I believe and make sense of it all, to the point where then I can't. That's his journey. And so in a lot of ways, I don't want to say it's easy, but I have to just give over to going on that ride.
Yeah. All right, now, Sean, you play somebody who is possessed, right? And it's one thing to say the words are on the page, they come to life, but possession is a really unique thing to bring to life, I feel like. And maybe I'm wrong, but was there anything you had to do in terms of just your thought process of getting your mind there to bring those elements of possession to life?
Well, the dialogue was written so crisp and clean that regardless if it has a character name and then it has words, you could take the character names away and I could be like, that's Nefarious, that's Edward, that's Nefarious, that's Edward. There's some, Edward's lines would never come out of Nefarious's mouth. So the way it's written, there's only a handful of ways to display that line of dialogue, given the predicament and the scenario and the unfolding possibilities in Edward's life. There's also, when you look at the situation with Nefarious, is that his goal is to have Edward killed. When you know those motivations, to me, maybe a better actor could have come up with 7 billion different ways. I had like 2 or 3 ways with every line that I could play with that made sense in my mind. And I don't, discount anybody else's process, but, I thought about it. The lines were incredibly clear. They made sense to me. And for me, for my life experiences, because that's certainly where we pull everything, if my intention and my goal was this, with that line of dialogue, there's only a handful of ways I can deliver that. And so I selected a couple, and I did it. And I hope it worked, but it wasn't.
It did. It worked.
I appreciate
it worked. It worked. You guys are dealing with obviously a movie entertains, right? But it makes people think. And the issue of evil is obviously, at the center of this. For you, how did the film maybe change or refine or challenge your thoughts on evil?
Wow. Change, refine my thoughts on evil. The film unfolds in a way that you think you know what the answer is, and then evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence is presented to you. And where does that leave you? That's essentially what James's predicament is he's presented with everything that he can explain, he doesn't have answers for. And then by comparison, the way he explains things almost sometimes seems silly. There's a moment in the film that actually gets a laugh, or got a laugh last night at the premiere. So I don't know. That's the inner spiritual conflict that he's going through, which is what if you don't believe in something, but it's sitting across the table from you, what do you do then? I don't know. And there are personal, as Sean just said, there are personal experiences that, as we discussed, my firstborn son was born on the first day of shooting. And so that experience, informs, emotionally and the rest, what's going on for me. And I don't know.
It must have been hard to be away for that.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard, but as we've discussed, there are a lot of things surrounding the movie that made me feel like I was in the right place and that it was okay. And I had his support and just felt really taken care of in that way. Yeah. But it definitely gave me whatever ineffable texture and juice that informs, I think, even unconsciously, my performance.
How about you on the evil front? How did it refine or change?
I'm a lot older than Jordan, so my refining, a lot of the sharp edges are gone now. But I'll tell you, if Nefarious could possess Jordan's body, the answer to that question would simply be, I had a child. And the minute that he told me that, I said, wow, man, it's a Hallmark card to say, kids will change your life. But it could not be more profoundly true. Dangers carry more weight. Pleasures carry more weight. Selecting nutrition carries more weight. Every single one of your ideas, your secrets, your dreams become magnified 50-fold. And certainly a script like this, it takes on a completely different... It's the little hill that you could sleep through, and it becomes a mountain. And it really forces some introspection. There are a lot of issues in this script that... it's the same way with every film. I could do a Hallmark novel film, and there's always lines somewhere that make me think about something. And I just know that for me, I've reached a point in my life where my convictions are probably more well-rooted. And certainly when I was younger, they weren't nearly as deep into the ground. But... I meet a lot of friends that they say, well, I don't believe because I can't explain it. For me, that's exactly why I believe, because I can't explain it. I can't explain a self-moisturizing autofocus eye coming into existence simply because two rocks banged into each other. That, I don't know. It's about as, us three sitting here by random chance is about as likely as the assemblage of a Boeing 747 from a tornado whirling through a junkyard. And I've felt that way for years now. Certainly having children were a big catalyst to that. So it was probably a little bit more parallel to my life at this stage. But like I said, I'm a lot older than Jordan. My kids are, his first child's a year and a half, So, but there's not a better dude I would want across the table. And I got to tell you, it really works for that character that it is that time in his life.
Yeah.
When all of these things are unfolding. I don't know if it would have worked quite as magnificently if he had everything sorted out. Then it would have been acting. But a lot of that is, that kind of makes sense. Wow, maybe I should think about that.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting.
Yeah, for me at least.
So, okay, the set, there were some different things on this set, I would imagine, from other sets that you've been on. I mean, there was an exorcist on
Mostly
set.
nothing.
What do you mean nothing?
Nothing. What was on there that was not on most sets is nothing. Usually there's something on sets, right?
God. So I mean, what was that like? I mean, there were some spiritual elements of it because it's a spiritual script, right? And a spiritual film. What was that like? You know, I know there was prayer on set. I know there was an exorcist on set. Curious.
What was it like?
Yeah.
Different. I mean, it's not the typical set, and nothing was required or anything. But I don't know. You just could feel that there was a common energy and a focused energy. And as I mentioned, I felt really because of the circumstances of my life, having my son, I just felt I felt taken care of in that way. There was something about the environment that they created that not only allowed us to do the work in a kind of uninterrupted way, but felt like we were protected and felt like we were taken care of, at least personally.
Yeah, they introduced us to The Exorcist, and there was a couple of fathers on set, and they said, do you want us to, and I've been a martial artist since I was 9, and I have a couple of academies now. It's a big part of my life. And one of the biggest parts of my legacy I'll leave behind to my kids is their no will contain more than just hope. They can walk through life confident of going, if that person takes something from me, I can make sure that it stops in its tracks. I don't have to ask politely, please don't. I can do something about it. And because I was born in Lake Charles, Louisiana, I grew up in Texas. I went to St. Mark's Episcopal School. I went to University of St. Thomas. Prayer and God has been in my life every waking moment. I didn't feel like I needed some extra protection. I thought, I've been walking with the Lord since I was an infant. I don't know any different. I mean, I almost felt like I would be insulting the Lord if I said, I'm going to need some extra.
Right.
I feel like that's the purpose. That's why I have that relationship. Because I can go and do this and go to sleep at night and turn it on and off without any fear of something's going to attack it. Do you know what I mean?
I
If that makes
absolutely know what
sense.
you mean. Yeah, you're protected. Yeah, I get that.
It's not that I turned it down.
No.
But everybody's like, you sure you're going to?
Yeah. When you go into
got
it with
me?
that
I got you?
mindset, you've
Okay,
got
cool.
you've got it. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, final question for you guys. I'll start with you, Jordan.
Yeah.
What is success for this film in your mind?
I think success is that this film changes people's hearts and minds. I mean, ultimately, that's the goal, is to make people question where they stand in terms of that confrontation with evil and their morality and what they're doing to fight that evil. I think there's something about the movie that burrows people can't shake. It burrows its way in, and at least that's how it was for me. I couldn't shake it. There's something ineffable about the movie that, and I think it's because the movie is about something real. It has a soul, and I think people will feel that. And if people are moved to think about those things in their own life and question their relationship to how they're living their life, that'll be extremely successful.
Absolutely. What would you say?
I think one of the biggest, lies we teach our kid is the whole, don't judge a book by its cover. Consequently, you go to every bookstore and they all have covers, and they're all designed by.
And they spend a lot of time on those covers.
Yeah.
The publishers, they do.
Yeah, at its core, the cover is the art. If it is a piece of art that people can lose themselves in and wake up when the credits come and go, oh, wow, I lost myself in that amazing film, then you get access to the internal meaning and maybe the message. My favorite films You know, one of our favorite times when I met my wife long time ago before we had kids, but we would go to the movies and we would spend the next hour and a half eating pizza with talking about the movie. Well, unless it was garbage, then we'd chat and we'd talk about or whatever gossip. But one of our favorite things was talking about the film and the plots and why did they write that? Why did they think that was significant? And getting into the writer's head as well as, you know, the ethical aspects and whatnot. So I think if it's wrapped up in art and it's just a good movie, then you can realize my definition of success, which is significance. Ultimately, I hope it's significant.
I love that. Well, thank you both so much. Appreciate your time.
Oh, pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.